Welcome to Thriving Your Love, a podcast where we will guide and help you improve your most precious relationships in life. This podcast is produced and hosted by certified emotionally focused therapist Claudio Vargas Silva, licensed marriage and family therapist, and Trisha Kim Walsh, also licensed marriage and family therapist. Welcome back, viewers and listeners, to Thriving Your Love with Claudio and Trish. It's great to have you here. And I was just sharing with Claudio a moment ago of our topic for today, which is overcoming your tendencies to control. And I do think as we pass Valentine's Day, there's a reflection that I even pause to reflect on the ways that we as partners, as people, as parents, try to control love. And it's something that I struggle with in my own personal life. It is something that I see frequently by the hour with my couples and with my families. And so we're going to have a part one, part two in this discussion. We're going to begin with part one of the individual, the person partner that has a tendency to control. And in part two, we will take it from the viewpoint of the individual feeling controlled, the partner feeling controlled. And I can't also help but think about how we see attachment needs through the lens of emotionally focused therapy, pursuing and withdrawing, and how we see that manifest even in the efforts to control, which we know the underlying need is to feel love, to receive love, to want love on our own terms. So great topic, Claudia. I'm ready just to dive on. And where should we get started? This is a great one. And I think this is something that we should start in the year 2026. So let's dive in.
Yeah, as you were talking about this now, I was remembering how I was when I was young, that I was very pursuing. When I liked someone, I would think about that person all the time. And I would idolize that person. I would think how happy I would be with that person. And then, when I did everything I could to be with that person by myself. I didn't want to share the person with anyone else. So I didn't like to be with other people, with friends, with family. I just wanted to be, in a room with that person and have that person totally for me, and 24/7.
Yes.
And I think that it didn't work very well. I think that
Yeah.
people felt overwhelmed and I would lose people. And I was learning like as time went by and becoming less obsessed and also understanding where that came from. What happened in my childhood that caused that,
Yes.
but basically, I just wanted to feel connected. I wanted to feel important to someone. I wanted to feel loved. And it had to do a lot with my childhood history, because as my mom had schizophrenia and my dad, his own childhood was difficult. He started working in the field when he was 5 years old. So he didn't have a childhood. And so he never hugged me, never kissed me. So there was like such a distance. He was a wonderful dad in the sense that he really tried the best, like put me in the best education, but he wasn't affectionate. He didn't show that affection. So I was pretty lonely. And then there was this wonderful person who was my cousin and his wife. So they took care of me for a while. And then I would like want to be with them. I would think about them all the time. And then when they came to pick me up and I went to their home, it was so wonderful. And I didn't want that to ever go away. I wanted to stay with them forever. But then my dad and my mom went to pick me up, and then it was so hard to go back to them. What happened is that for me, connection, affection was like a difficult treasure. When you see those like movies of people looking for treasure and how they work so hard to get to that treasure. So it was like that for me. So when I knew that I would see my adoptive mother and my cousin, I was so excited, and I was looking forward. So for me, it wasn't something that I could count on. It was something rare, you know? And then because of that, like when I became an adult, I was carrying that child inside of me. That thought, that love was so hard to have. And if I had to grab to that and guarantee that it wouldn't go away. And the thing that, Trisha, is that it would go away because I was grabbing too much. But then we see
Yeah.
the story behind it, right? We see what happened that caused that. You know, behind of every person who has a tendency to control, there is a history of trauma, of lack of affection, of lack of connection. And that person carries that child inside of them that wants so much to be loved. And it's cannot believe that they can count on it. They think it's rare. They don't think that it is that they deserve it, you know? So for them, it's something that could go away easily, and they have reached to guarantee that they have it. So they do things to guarantee that they're going to have that love, that they're not going to lose it. And what they do become like very controlling. And for the other person, it doesn't feel good. And then the other person might want to go away from them because they're not feeling really like having that freedom in the relationship, Trisha.
Yes, Claudio, there's so many pieces to this as you talk that I can relate to, even as you were introducing your own experience with love. I remember very distinctly in my very first relationships, my first romantic relationship in college, I was very insecure. And because my father was very controlling of me and my upbringing coming from a household where it was very traditional tiger parent, where the control, his love was be successful in school. So very little, very minimal dating of love. And the love we received was through the academics and excellence that coming into a college experience and finally getting a chance to date, I knew nothing of what was important around the balances of receiving and giving love. And in that hypervigilance to receive love, my very first serious boyfriend felt very controlled by me. There was an obsession that I'm embarrassed now. I can look back in time and say that I've grown from this, and now I'm a marriage and family therapist. But I can understand that there is this internal panic, this wounded child within that feels the fear of, am I going to be lovable enough? In my dating experience, I was constantly aware of any signs that indicated that he was less into me, that he was moving on, or that he was spending more time with friends, or having more activities and hobbies that had nothing to do with me, which is normal. Human beings get to have many interests that don't just focus on the romantic partner. But because I knew very little about what was considered normal and healthy in a relationship, I wasn't in therapy at the time, so I didn't know and understand these things, that I felt that I was losing him. And so I had to work harder and do things, whatever that might mean, to demand that attention very aggressively. And sometimes there were outbursts of anger that I felt this demand of his time of, I am important, and if you are going to be with me, I need to see it, I need to hear it, I need to feel it. I want you to plan our weekends together. I want us to be having meals together. When you're thinking about Friday night, isn't that when couples are supposed to be romantic? When we're walking down the street, aren't you holding my hand? Aren't you randomly giving me gifts of flowers to show your affection to me? So there really became an obsession. And I could really feel that dopamine fix of I just needed the next reassurance that we are okay. And it was actually quite the opposite, is the more demand, the more disgust I could really feel in his face of getting resentful of this love monster that I had created inside of myself. And so when I became a college counselor at Cal State East Bay in Hayward, I just remember working with young adults in this age group, sharing with me this confusion of, how do you date, Trish? I don't understand how this whole thing works, because I thought we were supposed to enjoy quality time together and spend as much time. We're supposed to be head over heels in love with each other. And why does it feel every time they're doing other things that I'm in panic that they're going to lose interest in me? And my heart just would go to them and go, yes, I remember exactly how that used to feel, Claudio, because there is this panic, fear, constant voice in your head
the part that says is, am I ever going to be enough? Am I deserving of love? Am I going to find someone that will want to spend the rest of their life with me? And all of these are examples of that control. It's not just the controlling of the individual, but it's the control of, I just want to feel okay. I want to feel loved. I want to be reassured and confirmed that everything's going to be okay between us. And I don't want anything else to get in the way that would prevent me from feeling your love because it feels so good.
And like when you said now about that you felt embarrassed, and then I thought, oh my goodness, the thing is that if we think like how we suffered in our childhood, when we think about like these people who have this tendency to control, how difficult, like maybe they were in a desert of love. They didn't feel connected. They felt so lonely. So it wasn't their fault that they became like that. And then now, like even feeling embarrassed, right? It's so important that we normalize and we show compassion and understanding. We are not in any way kind of blaming because people don't choose to be like that. But the good thing is that there's a way of overcoming that and learning to do differently. You talked about emotionally focused therapy and attachment theory. In emotionally focused therapy, you talk about the pursuer and the withdrawer. And then we know that the more the pursuer pursues, the more the withdrawer withdraws, and then more the withdrawer withdraws, the more the pursuer pursues. So it becomes like a cycle. It's very interesting, like how the controlling, right? Like how the pursuing will cause another person to go away. And I also have seen even that sometimes if you have two pursuers together,
Mm.
the one who pursues less will become a withdrawer.
Yes.
And it depends on who has more trauma in their history and more difficulty believing they are loved, right? So that person who will be more into pursuing and controlling and more obsessed. So the other person might feel overwhelmed and will kind of go away, and then it becomes so hard and so confusing, right? And what you said also, like there is this hypervigilance that we start like seeing signs that the other person maybe doesn't love us, doesn't care about us. So the person has some hobby they like doing, and then we think, oh, this person doesn't love me. I'm not important. I am secondary. That hobby is first. So I'm not saying that sometimes people could have some things that, like some addictions, and they could prioritize those things, and that's not healthy. But I'm not saying about that. I'm saying about normal things that people do, like, and sometimes people who are very controlling, they think that the other person should be 24/7 at their disposal, like should be there all the time available for them. They shouldn't do anything for themselves, and they shouldn't have any contact with anyone else, even with their own family of origin. So I have seen people who become upset if their partner contacts their family of origin, talks to their mother, to their father, to their siblings. They don't like that. Like, for example, a client of mine, so he had a problem with his partner because he had a friend from his school time, and he talked to this friend once a year. And then he would schedule a meeting with this friend. And as soon as he got there, started, connect with his friend, his partner was already sending messages when you are coming back and what you're doing. And, so he couldn't really feel comfortable and spending time with his childhood friend because his partner was very insecure and thinking that he was abandoning her. We can see like how hard and there are several examples of this, Trisha, and I don't know if you remember another example that you want to mention of how controlling people, how they control, like the things that they do.
Yeah, something that really has surged in the couples therapy work that amazes me is around technology and being on each other's access to their phones, their texting, their emails, and stalking. And what I mean by that is the temptation, and I've seen this with a lot of partners, of when there's a suspicion of they seem like they're spending more time focused on other things, that people have violated, partners have violated each other's trust by going into their phone and checking the text messaging and reading their emails without their permission or finding out what their password is to monitor the ways that they're connecting with others, whether it's friends, whether it's family. And once you know that information and you didn't receive that with permission of your partner, there's a betrayal of trust. And so it's very sad that even despite technology giving us so much access to more, that it also gives us more access to connection. And there can be that inherent fear that you have a world and a life outside of us, which we know as couples therapists, we want to encourage that balance, that there's a beauty of going out in the world, like a child goes out into the playground and plays with different kinds of equipment, and then they come back to their parent and they share all the things that they saw, the experience, the new friends they met. And in these partnerships, the examples, and I can certainly say I've been an individual that was violated, where there was distrust and there was a violation of going into my personal email information without my permission. And that trust violated that relationship because there was an inherent distrust of, I think that you're doing something that I question. And often there is the insecurity, is there another third party? Are you cheating on me? And there wasn't. But the reminder there, Claudio, is this is a time in which we are constantly finding ways to monitor. And if there's enough insecurity, and I see this with a lot of partners, is I can't imagine being that person, that partner that would do that. But I found myself taking my partner's phone and using their finger when they were sleeping to open up their electronics so I could have access to seeing what they were doing. And sometimes, unfortunately, there can be an affair. There can be a relationship. So this is the scary part, is with all the reality TV shows that people watch, there can be this need to control because there is the inherent insecurity of, is this forever? So
Mhm.
yeah, those are some of the examples that come to mind, Claudia. And as you can see, I could talk about this for a long time because this is such a powerful topic about the needs to control because there's such a fear of loss. And I know we do plan at some point to talk about what do you do about this to avoid this tendency to control. And I know we'll have a lot more to say about this and recommendations of what you can do that prevents you from having this need.
We can see that only one podcast is not going to be enough. It's necessary, really, a lot of work and awareness to do that, and courage. The person needs to be really brave to look themselves in the mirror and see what they are doing. Because one thing that can happen with controlling people is that they don't take responsibility for their controlling behavior and they place the problem in the other person, and saying that the other person is the one who is doing the wrong thing and they should really be totally there for them. And it's very important that there is really a desire to overcome this problem, that there is humility and also self-acceptance, right? Because as I said, there's a trauma behind, there's something that was very, very hard. And like, for example, when you were saying what you just said now, so there's a case of someone who was able to enter the other person's Facebook and then get to some of their friends on Facebook and block them.
Yeah.
And that relationship doesn't exist anymore because that is a boundary really bad to be crossed. But we see like the person's obsession and fear of losing, right? And getting to the point of being extremely controlling. And that's something that we want people to be aware of, first of all, accepting that they have a problem, and it shows that they have suffered this trauma that the person has gone through. The person is not to blame because of that. The person didn't choose the childhood that they had. The thing is, what you can do right now, right? What you can do at this moment. And you are doing it because you are listening to this podcast. So this is what I want to say, that it's very courageous of you who are listening to this podcast, because it's hard to look oneself in the mirror sometimes and see these tendencies, and our, as you said, of you feeling embarrassed sometimes, is so hard to look into that we don't want to, right? And we just want to blame the other person. But if we do that, we don't grow, we don't overcome that problem. So we want to bring a lot of compassion to this, a lot of empathy, understand that you have a history of trauma, you might have been a desert of love, and we just want to send a lot of kindness and acceptance to you. We are here for you, and we are with you on this route to be healthy. And above all, we want you to believe that you deserve to be loved. What happened to your childhood wasn't because of you. The people who took care of you, they had their problems, their own traumas, and they were unable to give you the love that you deserved, but you deserved back then, and you still deserve it today. And you can believe that you have everything to be loved, and you don't need to control other people to get that love, to be loved. You just need to trust that you deserve it.
That's beautiful, Claudio. I love that. I'm so glad we recorded that because I'm going to probably have to listen to that later on and put that on repeat a couple times a day because it's so hard to hear that. It's hard to hear that from your therapist. It's hard to hear that sometimes from your partner because it's, I think we hear and we remember the criticism. We remember the moments that are missed between us and our partner. We look and it's the wiring of evolution in our brain that we memorize what's going to help us survive. But then it also can be to our demise when we're always looking for a reminder that we are not deserving of love. But what you just shared capture that. I think that's so beautiful in the sentiments of Valentine's Day around self-compassion, and be reminded that if you are at all interested, we would love to hear from you. So topics that we can discuss on this podcast, we love doing this. We'd love to hear from you if you're at all interested in working with either one of us. We also offer workshops and classes and groups. So please do not hesitate to reach out to us and see if we might be a fit to help support you so you can deepen and thrive in your love. To be an advocate for your own self-love before you can give love to others, you have to start from within. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll have a part 2 to talk more about the tendencies and the needs to control, and also from the viewpoint of the individual feeling controlled. So stay tuned, and we'll have another episode brought to you by Trish and Claudio very soon. Thanks again. It's so great to have you.
Thank you so much for tuning in with us today. We hope you'll join us soon again for our next episode of Thriving Your Love.